Right. So today we're going to do a deep dive into something pretty wild. 422 crore rupees. That's a crazy amount of money to just disappear, and not through some like super high-tech hack or anything, but just people, basically handing it over with the promise of getting rich quick.
Yeah, it really is unbelievable when you think about it. And the fact that the government finally admitted it, that, on March 24th, they said over 11,000 people were victims in this whole BZ scam thing in Gujarat.
11,000 people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a small city worth of people.
It is. And it really brings it home when you think about it. These are real people, their lives, their savings, their plans for the future, and it all just got ripped away.
Yeah, and what gets me is like they were offering a guaranteed 7% return plus an 18% bonus. It's like, come on, who are they kidding, right?
Well, yeah, in this day and age, those kind of numbers are a huge red flag. Any legitimate financial advisor would tell you to run the other way when you hear promises like that.
Right? Like, it's not even subtle. It's like they were almost daring people to not believe them.
In a way, yeah. And sadly, it seems like a lot of people were willing to overlook that because, they were hoping for a quick and easy way to grow their savings.
And it's not like it was just a handful of people either. We're talking teachers, retired, government employees, farmers, like people who you'd think would be pretty careful with their money.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this whole thing so heartbreaking. These are folks who were probably just trying to make sure they had enough to retire comfortably or to send their kids to college, and they got caught up in this elaborate scheme.
The people behind this, they knew exactly who to target. They preyed on people's hopes and dreams.
And their lack of experience with high-yield investments,
Yeah.
Folks who maybe aren't as familiar with the complexities of the financial world.
Right. And then on top of all that, they added these almost comical incentives like invest 5 lakh rupees, get a free LED TV, put in 10 lakh, and you're off on a trip to Goa. It's like they were trying to make it sound like some kind of game show.
Well, I think it was all part of their strategy, to distract people from the inherent flaws in their investment scheme.
Yeah. It's like giving you a shiny toy to play with while they're emptying your bank account.
Exactly. And it worked because, people saw these immediate rewards, these tangible benefits, and it created this illusion of legitimacy and success.
Right. Like, look at all these happy people getting free TVs and vacations. That's supposed to be a great company to invest in.
Precisely. It plays on our human tendency to look for social proof. We're more likely to trust something if we see other people benefiting from it.
And then there's the whole way they structured their network with these agents who were promised huge commissions just for bringing in new investors.
Yeah.
5% to 25%, that's insane.
Yeah, it's a classic pyramid scheme setup, where the early investors are rewarded for recruiting more people, and the whole thing becomes unsustainable very quickly.
And you can just picture these agents, right, going around to their friends and family saying, hey, I've got this amazing opportunity. You got to get in on it. And they probably had no idea they were part of something so shady.
And that raises the question of, how much responsibility do these agents bear? Obviously, the people who orchestrated the scam are the ones who should be held accountable, but the agents were the ones on the front lines convincing people to invest.
Yeah, it's a tough one because on the one hand, they were being misled themselves, but on the other hand, they were the ones who ultimately convinced their friends and family to hand over their money.
It's a reminder that trust can be a powerful tool and it can be easily exploited.
So let's talk about the mastermind behind all this. Bhupendrasinh Jhala, the CEO of BZ Group.
Ah, yes, the men who reportedly had a financial strategy straight out of a Bollywood crime thriller.
It's like he was playing a character, and he got so caught up in the role that he forgot it was all a scam.
And what's even more interesting is his apparent connection to politics. He ran for Lok Sabha independently at one point, and then later seemed to have some ties to the ruling BJP.
But of course, as soon as the scam came to light, the party was quick to distance themselves.
Classic political maneuvering, claim the wins, disown the disasters.
But it does make you wonder about the level of scrutiny that goes on when someone with political ambitions gets involved in these big financial ventures.
Absolutely. There needs to be more transparency and accountability, especially when there's potential for conflict of interest.
So where did all this money end up? Well, it seems like Mr. Chawla was living pretty large, buying up luxury SUVs, Fortuners, Harriers, even Audis.
Yeah, it's almost poetic, isn't it? He promised his investors a ride to success, and he ended up taking them for a ride, all right, just not the kind they were hoping for.
It's infuriating, really, to think that he was using their life savings to fund his lavish lifestyle.
And it's a common tactic. These scammers, they often flaunt their wealth as a way to further the illusion of success and attract even more investors.
It's like they're saying, look at me, I'm rich, You can be rich too, just give me your money.
And unfortunately, it works on a lot of people.
So how did this whole thing finally fall apart?
Well, eventually the police started to catch on. They raided BZ Group's offices and found all sorts of incriminating documents, proof that the whole thing was a sham.
And I'm guessing they weren't too happy about finding out how Mr. Jhala was spending their money.
Not at all. They arrested him and several of his associates, and the whole thing is now going through the legal system.
So what happens to the victims now? I mean, can they expect to get their money back?
Well, that's the tough part. Even if the authorities manage to recover some of the stolen funds, it's unlikely that everyone will get everything back.
And on top of the financial loss, there's the emotional trauma of being scammed like that. It's got to be devastating.
Absolutely. The loss of trust, the feeling of betrayal, it can be really hard to overcome.
So what's the big takeaway here for our listeners? What can they learn from this whole BZ scam mess?
Well, I think the most important lesson is if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah, that old adage is as true today as it ever was.
Exactly. So anytime you're presented with an investment opportunity that promises unbelievably high returns with little or no risk, you need to be extremely skeptical.
And don't be afraid to ask questions. Do your research, talk to a financial advisor, make sure you understand exactly what you're getting into.
And remember, if someone really had a foolproof way to make tons of money, they wouldn't need your investment. They'd be doing it themselves.
Right. They'd be off on their own private island somewhere, sipping cocktails and laughing at the rest of us.
Exactly. So don't let the allure of easy money cloud your judgment. Always think critically and be wary of anything that seems too good to be true.
So to recap, we've learned about the BZ scam in Gujarat, where over 11,000 people lost a staggering 422 crore rupees, and the mastermind behind it all, Bhupendrasinh Jhala, who seems to have had a knack for both financial deception and political maneuvering.
And we've explored the devastating impact this kind of scam can have on individuals and communities, not just financially, but emotionally as well.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought. In a world where we're constantly bombarded with information and opportunities, both legitimate and not, how do we develop the critical thinking skills and the healthy skepticism we need to protect ourselves from these kinds of scams?
It's a challenge for sure, but I think it starts with being aware of the red flags, understanding the tactics that these scammers use,
Yeah.
and being willing to say no, even when it feels like we might be missing out on something amazing.
And remember, there's no shame in asking for help. If you're ever unsure about an investment opportunity, talk to a trusted financial advisor or do your own research online. There's a ton of information out there.
The key is to be proactive, to take control of your financial well-being, and not let yourself become a victim of these predatory schemes.
Because ultimately, it's up to each of us to protect ourselves and our loved ones from these financial predators.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, and the more we know about how these scams work, the better equipped we'll be to avoid them.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the BZ scam. We hope you found it informative and maybe even a little bit empowering.
And remember, stay vigilant, stay informed, and stay safe out there.
Until next time.
Take care.